Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. Today I'm going to explain to you the Israeli and Palestine conflict. This will be a conflict analysis, so we will be going over the causes, the reasons, the actors involved, and the stages of the conflict, and also the mechanisms taken to resolve the conflict. Just as a little spoiler, this is still an ongoing conflict, so nothing has really worked, but we will analyze why. Um, it is very important to also mention that this conflict has its causes in religion and in ethnic background, but it's not necessarily a religious conflict. This is more of a territorial and of a nationalist conflict. It is very important to draw that distinction because this conflict does not start way back when, but it has a very clear beginning, and the reasons have been clear throughout history. We'll get into that. As I said, religious is a very important component, but it's not the main cause of the still ongoing territory. Now, we will have to analyze, of course, a little bit of the historical overview as it being a very important part of the pre-conflict stage. This territory, the territory of Israel and Palestine, has been very important, and it has been the seat of three main religions. First, it came the Jews. They named the land of Israel, but of course, as history has shown, conquests were very important. And first, it was the conquest of the Roman Empire. This is where the the Christian church established. And afterward, there came the Ottoman Empire and a conquest by the Ottoman Empire. While all this was going on, many Jews fled the area and spread throughout the continent. The territory became Palestine and obeyed the order of the Ottoman Empire. The territory stayed the same until the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and also the end of World War II, where Britain conquered Palestine at the end of 1970. This new century was very important because there were a lot of changes going on. And one of those were the new establishment of Britain in the territory. Actually, Britain was granted a mandate where Palestine and in the San Remo Conference in 1920, approved by the League of Nations in 1922. Now we can see the League of Nations, an international organization, the predecessor of United Nations here as an actor. So Britain not only gained mandate, but also gained the obligation to recognize a dual necessity or obligation towards both states, Arabs and Jews. Now we have talked why Arabs, because they were the ones occupying the territory since the Ottoman Empire, but also why Jews. So at the beginning, the first decade of the 19th century had a rise of a movement called Zionist. The Zionist movement was a movement where Jewish people were claiming to reoccupy the land of what they call the land of Israel. Why? Because they thought the land was designed for them, but there is the cultural and religious element. So this movement took off, and there was migration from Israelis, from Jewish people to the territory. So Britain had to recognize that they had to attend two very different religions, the Arab Muslims and the Jewish. So the Balfour Declaration recognized the territory as also national homeland of the Jewish people. This Balfour Declaration was emitted and signed by Great Britain. So over this period, as we specifically mentioned before, the Zionist movement was on a rise, and it saw an influx of migrants, especially taking into consideration what came after World War I, which was the reign of Hitler. and the persecution of Jews throughout all of Europe. So while that was starting to happen, a lot of Jews were trying to migrate down this territory. Well, and then it comes the Holocaust and the World War II. In this period of time, 6 million of Jews were killed. They were persecuted in all of Europe, not only Germany. Um, it was a group that it was signaled and captured and put in concentration camps. So we have all seen and known what happened in World War II. There was a very big, massive influx of migration of Jewish to the Palestine territory, and Great Britain felt the necessity to control these migrations. The Jewish people who were already in the territory did not like that, so they formed militias to resist the British regulation of migration. British felt under great pressure. They were fighting the Palestinians who were unhappy because they couldn't rule what they used to rule during the Ottoman Empire. And they also felt a lot of pressure from Israel, well, from Jewish people because they were fighting Palestinians, but they also formed militias to fight Great Britain. So in general, um, internationally, there was a very big response about the grief after the assassination and persecution of the Jewish people. And this is one of the causes of what happened next. So Britain felt like it could no longer handle the issue. So it gave it to United Nations. And this constituted after World War II, specifically 1947, the constitution of consolidation, of the Israel state. So Britain left and granted the territory to the newly formed United Nations. In 1947, United Nations approved a resolution 181, which proposed a fair division of territory for an Arab and a Palestine state, and also a Jewish, which was the Israeli state. They decided to divide the territory almost half, but the problem was that 55.6% was considered to be Israeli territory, but only 1/3 of the population was Jewish. So there was less territory for the Palestinians, who were the majority of the population in the territory. Now, since Jerusalem acted as a very important place for both religions, the United Nations granted that space to work as a special international zone that would be directly under their administration. This is a map of how the territory was divided. So there, the part of the right was very close to Jordan, to the left, Egypt. And of course, Palestine did not like this resolution because they felt excluded and they felt like they took a lot of territory that wasn't theirs to begin with. So, yes, this is the start of the conflict. The intervention of the United States to officially divide the territory and recognize Israel as a state created great despair and anger in Palestine and the Arab states. But on the other hand, you had the whole international community feeling extremely ashamed for what happened in the Holocaust. So this created the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, where after Israel declares independence, in retaliation, the Arab League, consisting of Syria, Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq, launched war to regain and establish an Arab Palestine. This conflict resulted in Nakba, which is translated to catastrophe for Palestine because they lost a lot of territory. In this time, Israel won the war plus 23% of territory. And Egypt controlled the territory of Gaza, Jordan, East Jerusalem. As the result of this newly acquired territory, Around 75,000 Palestinians were expelled from the territory and ruled under Israeli law. So this is a overview of what it was left of the territory of Palestine. And here we can see a graph regarding the influx of migrants and population, how the population changed over time. Well, just before moving on, that territory was the same after 18 years. And during this time, there were a lot of frictions going on. So those frictions were broke down in the Six-Day War in 1967. In this war, Egypt received a false inform from the USSR about a concentration of Israeli brigades of Israel prepared to strike Syria. Now, here it's very important to understand this is the period of the Cold War. So Israel had a very close relation with the United States, and that is a reason why they won this war. So a USSR wanted to deter the US's place in the Middle East, which was through Israel. So an alliance was formed between Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Sudan. Nevertheless, Israel won the war with technology and military strategy advantages. It is also important to mention that nuclear power was already being not only researched, but also United States had worked closely with Israel to um, develop this. So as a result, Israel seized territory of Gaza, Sinai Peninsula, East Jerusalem, Jordan, West Bank, and the Golan Heights. This is how the territory was moved. So Israel won a lot of territory, but then the Sinai Peninsula was returned to Egypt under the Israeli-Egypt Peace Treaty. Under the acquisition of territory, under 1 million Arab people were put under Israeli rule, and Israel kept settling Jews in under areas where majority of the population were Palestinian to maintain power in this region. So you can see really a balance of power, how it shifted from being completely Palestinian to almost completely Jewish. And the main actors involved were, of course, the Arab states, as we saw the Arab League who formed to defend Palestine, but also Israel and the international community, because Israel was only able to be there to put them itself and constitute itself as a whole nation because it had the aid of the international community after World War II. It is also important to mention the close relationship between Israel and United States that definitely helped with militia since as it is seen before, it was seen before, Israeli territory is surrounded by its enemies and vice versa. So everything, as I said, it's referenced, it's cited here, and it really shows a huge shift of the balance of power over territory and over population. The conflict is still ongoing. Many mechanisms for conflict resolution were tried to be implemented, such as dialogue, negotiation, mediation, and nothing has worked because it only got worse from here, from the 1960s, but the time is limited and I cannot talk about more because it's very extensive. But peace treaties have, or peace settlements, mechanisms for settlement dispute have not worked. And this is still a very hot topic and a hot conflict. And it has its reasons on religions, but definitely became more of a nationalism and territorial dispute than any other thing. I want to thank you for listening to this, and I hope I get a good grade. Goodbye.